Hello, everybody, and welcome. This is Lizzie and Justin, and we are turning towards life today, as we do on all of our Sundays. And you're very welcome here. If you're watching on the video, you'll see that I have a really horrible eye infection, and I've had COVID this week. So this is a great treat for me to be somewhere that's restorative and helpful and distracting from the state of my eyes, feeling very itchy and irritable and painful as well. So I'm really grateful to be here, Justin, just to be in something that's not trying to wipe my eyes and spray them with things and cope with the whole thing. So we've had a house full of unwellness this week, and it's been quite a kerfuffle, as we would say in our Englishism. And so bringing this source, Justin, and focusing on something that is about life and the path that we're walking I'm so grateful for it, and I'm so supported by it. And it reminds me of, we often talk about the kind of people who listen to us and what they're up to in their lives. And many people are unwell and find that this is a way of being in their unwellness with some kind of support that's not focused on their unwellness, but that holds it in a different way, or enables them to hold it in a different way. So anyway, I'm one of those people this week, being held by our work and the bigger container that it provides than my own kind of worried and itchy self, if you know what I mean. So thank you for always bringing these things that are of that depth as well, that are so supportive.
Oh, you're so welcome, Lizzie. I'm just so glad you're able to be here in your unwellness and itchy eye-ness and all of that. I know
Yeah.
it's unpleasant, and
Mm-hmm.
it's a reminder to me of we can't always manage it, us humans, when we're feeling out of sorts with ourselves. But the gifts of being in relationship and the gifts of being together. So it's good for me too that you're here, and I know good for many people who are with us as well. So I want to say welcome to everyone, whether you are feeling full of beans and uh, at the peak of your capacities, or whether you're feeling somehow far from that, you're equally welcome here in this conversation. And it's always true, Lizzie, because you and I talk about this a lot, how this is a conversation between the two of us, but it's really not a conversation between the two of us, certainly not only. That there are many of you who are in the conversation with us, whether the conversation happens in your own inner experience or whether it happens between you and other people you know. We know lots of people talk with people that they know about what's happening for them in being in this. Or if you want to be in conversation with us, as a couple of people have done in the last week or so, you can always just email us or reach us on our Turning Towards Life Facebook group, which everyone is very welcome to join, and where you can catch us live on a Sunday morning, as we are now. But if you want to email us, Justin or Lizzie, or just hello@turningtowards.life, we'll get your words to us, and we'll always be really delighted to respond. And you can find us also in all the podcast places and YouTube and all of those places. And I thought it was worth saying this morning, Lizzie, that as we're sort of gearing up towards the beginning of another year of our big shared Thirdspace endeavor, the professional coaching course, which is the thing that brought you and I into one another's orbit, and many others over the year. We're recording this in the end of February, and that begins in the summer, in end of June or beginning of July, I think, this year. And this conversation is deeply informed by that and informs that. So if you're listening and you're interested in checking that out, you could head over to Thirdspace, which is really the host for this conversation, which is wearethirdSpace.org, and check out what we're up to over there. That's the sort of the holding world for this Turning Towards Life conversation. So as always, we have a source. I know that I found this source, Lizzie, because somebody brought it to my attention, and I have no idea who or how. I didn't keep a note of it. Thank you to whoever pointed us to Quinn Bailey and these words. But when I read it, I thought, this is what this is about, so we should talk about it. And the source for all of you who are with us is always with the notes of whatever recording. If you're listening to a recording, it's also in our Facebook group and on our Turning Towards Life website. It's called the only two directions. This world has only two true directions: towards and away. The big fear in the end is to awake and find you chose away, that the hand which held you down was none other than your own. Remember, the pursuit of that which is not truly us renders even the most powerful vision useless. Recognize when the boulder in front of the cave begins to shift, when that first illuminating shaft pierces the dark. Do not hesitate long. Do not waste time anticipating the griefs yet to come. They cannot be helped, and perhaps are necessary, on that long and awkward walk towards yourself.
This world has only two directions, towards and away. The big fear in the end is to awake and find that you chose away, that the hand which led you down, which held you down, was none other than your own. Remember, the pursuit of that which is not truly us renders even the most powerful vision useless. Recognize when the boulder in front of the cave begins to shift, when that first illuminating shaft pierces the dark. Do not hesitate long, do not waste time anticipating the griefs yet to come. They cannot be helped and perhaps are necessary on that long and awkward walk towards yourself.
Thanks, Lizzie. My goodness, there is so much to talk about in here, and I don't even really know where to begin. But I suppose where I want to start, I'm drawn to start with a couple of things. So one is this contention or invitation that Quinn Bailey makes to us, that towards and away is a choice, no matter what circumstance we're in. With this line, the big fear to awake and find that you chose away, and that the hand which held you down was none other than your own. And it really struck me, I've been feeling this a lot in my own life recently, that this isn't really about how things work out. It's not about how much freedom am I afforded by the political system I'm in or the society I'm in. It's related to it. But this starts in a much more personal place, which is towards or away from the one life that is mine. And it's been really illuminating. Well, it's been a topic of our conversation for years now, Lizzie, this towards and awayness, given everything that we're up to. But my goodness, how easy it is to turn away. It's so easy. And to turn away without even really noticing what we're doing. You and I have been talking a lot over these last weeks, outside of our live conversation, about what it is to turn towards that which is truly us. And as I've been reading this, I've been thinking about, sometimes it's easy to tell when I'm turning away or turning towards, because I can feel myself tightening up, or I can feel myself going to sleep, or I can feel myself shutting down because I am anticipating the griefs yet to come, or I can feel myself doing something that's obviously not mine to do. But there's also this whole realm of things we get up to that by rights we ought to be able to argue, this is my thing, this is the place that I belong. But if we look closely, we find out that they belonged at a different time in our lives, or belonged in a way that is no longer true. So I'm feeling as we sort of enter into this conversation, this need to keep on paying attention to what is towards and to what is away, and to not, for me anyway, to not get caught up in a fixed idea of what it is to really turn towards my life, because it keeps on changing. Changes as the years and the decades go past, and I can easily turn away from my life by staying very fixed in holding myself towards something that once was the towards thing.
It's really sweet, Justin, because I feel like this in some ways also a continuation of the conversation we were having last week, just in the way you were saying that then, in that we were talking about the elusive wisperness of this truly usness, like the part of us that's speaking really quietly, that we need to get quiet in ourselves and our noisiness to be able to even listen to, because we've got so much habitual carrying on, turning awayness in us. And I feel like this is another kind of, thank goodness for Quinn Bailey being that person who can reassure us that when we've heard something or we've noticed something, that this feels like what happens when you've started to listen, that there's this boulder, there's a shaft of light that comes in, and then there's a little recipe of what to do next. Like, don't hesitate too long, don't waste too much time anticipating grief that's yet to come. It won't be helped anyway. It's a long and awkward walk. It's like a real kind of validation of what it is to either be feeling called towards something, or to have been called towards something and have been taking the steps wherever you are along the path. So I feel very grateful that there's language and some articulation of what the terrain is like, what this process is like of waking up, to use Quinn Bailey's language, to wake up and find that I'm choosing turning towards. Like, what a relief that is. And it could be tiny, these little towardsnesses. I mean, this is the thing. Towards and away also feels at scale when I read it just in isolation. But the teeny weeny towardsingness, the teeny weeny steps that are, even maybe making a request for the first time of someone you thought you couldn't ask anything of, like, or saying how I feel in the face of someone who I feel is going to reject me if I include myself there. Even, I mean, those things are quite big actually, but arguably, like, just little pieces of language that come out of my mouth to another person, or little events that of self-care, going for a walk when I haven't gone for a walk for a long time because I've been putting it off, or quietly neglecting myself, or putting my health to the back of my awareness or something. And then I take a step, and I move towards my one step on this awkward walk towards myself happens. So I feel like there's an honoring as well of those small moves that we make that might not be about, oh my gosh, I've discovered that I need to be a carpenter in the Outer Hebrides or something. There are those ones, and how wonderful that those ones come. But there are also the kind of everyday ones as well that feel honored here of, oh look, I took a small step in one of the only two directions, which was towards my life, towards my well-being, towards my self-inclusion, towards my self-validation, honoring, towards the life that feels like it's truly mine, rather than the one that I should be living, or the way I should be behaving or something. And it's really big, because the consequences of those things are often significant, given that we've habituated ourselves and one another into our current ways of being. So when I turn around and suddenly make a request of someone, because I notice that I have a need or a desire or something, they're going to be like, what? You're the person who also always agrees with me. You're not the person who chooses the film to watch or what food we have today. That's not who you are. And yet that's who I'm trying to be today. So I feel like it's very honoring of that. And I feel moved by I don't know, the holding that this poem provides for those small moments of choice, of opening, of peeking out, whilst that shard of that illuminating shaft is there, that we get this little opening and we can scurry out and try something that is more aligned with the truly usness.
So as I'm listening to you, I'm so appreciating having a distinction which essentially gives me two directions and only two. It's either towards or it's away, and not something in the middle. So I can then ask myself. That was taken by what you were saying, Lizzie, about the micro moments of our lives. Of course, there are the big questions: should I be a carpenter, or should I be a parent, or should I be prime minister, or should I be making coffee for people, or should I be an artist, or all of those sort of like identity questions that we ask ourselves. But then there's the identity question of moment by moment, of observing: am I turning towards life, towards my life? Am I turning towards what's true? Am I turning towards what's most alive and urgent? Am I turning towards the ones who are around me? Are we turning towards what's here? Or am I turning away? And we can ask that. We can keep on asking that question. I've been asking it of myself just in listening to you, just noticing, when am I really letting myself turn towards, or committing myself to turning towards you and what you're saying? Or when am I doing something else, like tuning out, or getting afraid of how I might look, or worrying about whether I'll have anything to say when it's my turn to speak, or any of those things, all of which are turning away. And I noticed whilst I was listening to you that in a way I can turn away in multiple levels at the same time, but I can only really turn towards one way. So turning towards is to really commit myself to being here. Turning away, I can, for me anyway, I can worry, and then I can worry about the fact that I'm worrying, and then I can try to tune out the fact that I'm worrying about the fact that I'm worrying about something. Like, I can just go away in like multiple layers. And it's a very fierce thing for Quinn Bailey to say to us: the big fear in the end is to awaken. And we find that we've been choosing away. And it seems to me that that's, I could take that for the half an hour that we're together in this conversation, is to awake at the end and find that I turned away for the whole time. I wasn't even there. And then how that adds up into a week or a month or a year or a lifetime. It's possible at all of those scales. And it is a big call to our own courage to be reminded that if for this half hour I find that I'm choosing away, then the truth is the hand which held me down was only mine. I may not have known exactly what to do about the fact that my own hand was holding me down. But nothing else is present here, Lizzie, in this half an hour with you, apart from who we can be for one another, which of course is obviously a big part, and then how I respond, what I do with that in the middle of it. So I then really, really appreciating this other part where Quinn says, recognize when the boulder in the front of the cave begins to shift, and don't hesitate. Because, at least in me, if I try to wrestle too much with the part of me that's the hand holding me down, try to argue it out of place or push it away, that part of me tends to hold on much more tightly and get more and more insistent and more afraid, and I'm caught in a cycle of going away. So there's there's in the end, it seems to me it's a great inner letting go that's called for, and
Yeah.
it's not always completely. It's certainly by far from. It's very often not. I can't often, by act of will, have it happen. My act of will is part of this. So I love the idea that there's a sort of art of attention that's called for, which is to notice those moments when, by grace, oh, I'm here. I'm actually getting to be here with myself and my own life and with Lizzie and in this conversation. That's noticing that that has opened by some miracle, is then, as Quinn says, a moment not to waste time anticipating the griefs yet to come. Like, I might lose this.
Mm.
Better cover it up whilst I can, so I don't have to feel the loss of being really alive here.
Mm.
What a gift it is to be invited into giving up the idea that this is only because of our own forcefulness somehow that this happens, and it might be to do with something very mysterious. It might also be to do with noticing that the boulder in front of the cave begins to shift when I'm here with you.
Mm. Yeah, as you were talking, Justin, I was also realizing that this poem has beautiful implications for just our individual process of unfolding into ourselves more and more as we live. And so in this moment to momentness, I can feel that there are these shards of light that come, which often feel quite different to a shard of light. They feel painful, or they feel like they trigger my defensiveness or some kind of worry or anxiety or something. And yet when I turn towards them, I realize that they are a shard of light. You know, in the last couple of weeks, I've done some things where my kind of habitual move to make things safe has kind of backfired on me. So I have moved to create relationship with someone because something tricky is happening, and they just got more angry with me, and I was really wounded because I thought, well, I'm just trying to move towards you here, and the way that they responded wasn't the way that I would like them to have responded, which was like, oh, thank you for coming and making friends again. It was get out. And so for me, of course, that was really painful. But as I'm reading this poem with you now, I can see that there's a shard of light in there for me, because what it showed me is that I think maybe where my wish to create relationship was coming from was some kind of traumatized part of me that needs to get back to safety where we're all okay with one another. And in the trying to make it all okay, and that we're all okay with one another, I could see that because of the person's response, I could see this beautiful lesson of that's not what was needed here. What was probably needed here was for me to stand more in my center and allow myself to be disliked and to not do anything about it, because actually this wasn't my thing to resolve. This was something that was happening with someone that was actually really nothing to do with me. But because of my wish for safety in relationship, I kind of tried to bring it back round to us all being all right with one another. And so I'm seeing that this shard of light, this illuminating shaft piercing the dark, can also kind of be slightly the other way around as well, where it feels like a shard of dark is piercing the light. And it really matters to not hesitate, but to go, right, so what is this about me and my process that this could be opening up? And then I began to talk about it, to research the dynamic, to look into things around where I create relationship as a form of safety for myself, and where sometimes that's just the skill that's needed and sometimes it really isn't the thing that's needed. And where am I really coming from inside of that? And what's my agenda and what's my need inside of it? Maybe I could speak about my need and my agenda rather than actually doing something that doesn't produce the result I want anyway, because it was never the right action in a way. So I can feel that this long and awkward walk towards myself also gets kind of shaped by the way I make mistakes and how much light gets brought when my mistakes are then brought to my own awareness and my conversation with others who I trust and love and who see me. And then I can, in my unfolding, I can learn this whole new thing. So, all my research in the last couple of weeks has led me to this whole body of research about trauma responses and how each of us, when we feel unsafe, reach for different, or we don't reach for them, they just happen, these parts that happen in us, where we might try and run really far away, or we might just get completely frozen. And this response that I was doing was a kind of what I've been reading about as the fawning response, which is I feel unsafe, and so I'm going to try and make things safe by being nice and building relationship and making everything okay. And actually seeing it as a trauma response for me has been a massive shard of illuminating light, where I'm like, so now I can see that that's what I've been doing. I don't need to do that so much anymore, because I can see now, like, something's been illuminated that can't be now unilluminated in me, which is that this reaching for making safety through relationship is in part a wonderful thing to have in my life. And in other parts, it's really not appropriate because it's not what's actually needed. So I feel like this poem also helps me to reach even deeper, to turning towards those lessons that are being brought my way by the other people in my life, where all of my good intention is present and all of my goodness is right there. And yet what comes back at me is not mirrored in that way. It's different. So I feel like I am grateful to have this poem, both for the sake of the kind of moment to moment choices, but also as a commentary on and an invitation into how I could treat my own unfolding process as a human being who's learning things and making mistakes and messing things up and getting things right and getting things wrong and all of the things that we all do. This poem is an invitation for me to treat all of that as, something tricky is happening. How do I turn towards it? And how do I learn? How do I see what my place is in this? How do I do one small act today that meant I didn't use my own hand to hold me in the pattern that I'm in, but that I lifted my hand off myself and wondered how I could learn from this.
It's things you're reteaching me in listening to you, Lizzie, is that although there are only two can't even say it now, two true directions towards and away, discerning which is not always easy.
Mm.
And there's this line in the middle where Quinn says, the pursuit of that which is not truly us renders even the most powerful vision useless. And I was feeling into what you were saying, this sense that any of us can have, that the way that we're responding to something feels like, that might be truly me, to make this move to remake relationship. That's truly me. And then we find out in the bringing of it that in some way it was a way of keeping ourselves safe rather than at our most real.
Yeah.
And that it's confusing because the patterns that we've inevitably it has to get us into a question of what is truly us, which is not an easy question to answer by any means. Like, to what extent is there a way in which I'm truly me that's separate from everything else I've experienced all the way through my life, and to what extent is what is truly me the one that has been made by all the experiences I've had all the way through my life. And in any kind of response where what we're mostly doing is trying to make ourselves feel safe, maybe for something, maybe one of the distinctions is, Lizzie, around trauma might be where we find ourselves taking action to try and make ourselves safe from something that we're not really called to make ourselves safe from, but we once were. Like in this moment, the way I'm responding, or the thing that you were describing as a response to something from before, it's not the response to the thing that is here now. And that might be part of one of the places that we find that the hand that's holding us down is our own hand that's holding us loyal or committed to something that once served, and still feels like it must really serve, but then if we look carefully we find out it doesn't. But it's really tortuous territory because it's not easy to discern. We have to really pay our kind of quizzic attention. And what I deeply appreciated about what you were saying is how much willingness to really look, and willingness to pay attention over a long period of time, and willingness to wonder, and willingness to talk to other people about it, and willingness to discover language like the language of fawning that you were talking about. All of that kind of attention and care it takes to help us to do that discernment about whether something really is true now of me, or whether it's something I've been carrying with me for fear of the griefs that are yet to come, or for fear of what might happen. So it feels like you've opened up such valuable and permission-giving territory for us, because if we were to read Quinn Bailey's words really simply, we'd go, well, there's only two directions, towards and away. You're either towards or away, so get with it. And it's like, no, it's really, really messy, and it's a lifetime's walk, and it is this long, awkward walk towards ourselves, where we imagine that we're going towards ourselves, and we're really not, and it takes us ages and ages and ages to find out. But I'm really mindful, as we're talking about how much we need one another to do this, that this is not a solitary pursuit, that it really helps to have people around us who are in the same kind of scale of question, and who are also willing to help us find out what's true without just for the sake of finding out what's true.
So grateful, Justin, to be able to be in the wonderings as always. Thank you for finding the complexity in it as well as the straight lines in it. I'm so grateful for that.
Yeah, me too. That's what that's why this conversation, I think, Lizzie, has taken 5.5 years so far, and may well have many years left to run. And so I'm grateful, really grateful to you too, for keeping on opening up new territory, new horizons in me, by what you get to see and what you get to say, and finding myself so willing and so able to respond. And being very grateful to everyone else who's with us. Thank you to all of you who are with us, whether you just stumbled your way on the awkward long walk into our presence, or if you've been with us for a long time. And you're also welcome to share this with other people, to let people know who you think would benefit from this conversation. We'd love to welcome all of those people in too. And all being well, we will be back again next week. Thanks, everyone.
Thanks, everyone. Bye-bye.